You might have already seen one of my latest videos where I go over how suppressors work, but that only applied to the Warfare game mode. I promised that I would look into the operations version of the suppressors, and some of you asked for it too. So let me show you what I realized and how I realized it. Starting off with the Whisper Tactical Suppressor. In operations, we can see that it has a 2-bar weak gunshot suppression stat, which, as you can see from the start of my testing here, I originally thought that it translated to the minimap visibility decrease stat that shows up when you're playing Warfare. But as it turns out, as I tested all of the various ranges, I realized that no matter the range, there was never a red dot on the minimap at all. And this is what helped me discover that, as it turns out, none of the suppressors make any difference in minimap visibility, because as you can see here, even the unsuppressed weapons don't show you on the minimap at all. I was a little bit bummed because, as you can tell, I came in here ready with every single suppressor, but instead I switched it around to be a test about sound. So today we'll do a quick test of most of the popular ones, and in the future I will do a much more comprehensive test for suppressors in operations, where I will be going over the loudness and tone changes at different ranges. For now, just keep in mind that the stronger the gunshot suppression effect is, the better. The secret really lies in being able to balance the suppression gains with the stats that each one provides as you're creating your operations builds. Now let's listen to the Whisper Tactical. Coming up, the Advanced Multi-Caliber Suppressor. Next is the M7 Practical Suppressor. Now for the popular SMG suppressors, the SMG Echo Suppressor. And lastly, the Russian SMG Echo Suppressor. As you can tell from this short test, each suppressor has a unique tone and volume depending on distance and the weapon that it's actually on. Testing this is going to be a huge undertaking, so we'll explore the idea more in the future. For now, I want to go over Stinger's Hive-Tech pistol. I made a short about how the damage fall-off works and the damage that it actually does in Warfare, but I wanted to also check it out in operations. So I hopped into my test account and I started trying to see if it was still a 2-shot to the head at close ranges. On the first shot that I took, I only did 30 damage, but I later found out that that was because I was not injured. Then on the second shot, my head is injured, which then causes it to do 60 damage. Every shot from then on to the head at around 7 meters was doing exactly 60 damage. I wanted to see if there was another multiplier at around 3 meters, but that just wasn't the case. It is still doing 60 damage. At 8 meters, you still got the full 60. So we know now that we cannot reliably say that the ranges are going to be the same from Ops to Warfare. So then I went to 25 meters and I noticed that it was still doing 60. It almost seemed like there was just no real range fall off until I went all the way to 46, where I only did 30, and just to confirm, I did it twice and it really only did 30 damage. Okay, so let's go a little bit closer up at 31 meters and we still only did 30. Let's go to 29 then, see if we can find a range, and that is still 30 damage. And then I moved all the way to 26 because maybe I had just happened to stumble upon the 25 meters being the last range at which you can do the 60 damage. And I thought that I was right for a second here, because at 26 we only did 30 also. So to confirm that, I moved back down to 25, where, if you remember, you're supposed to be dealing 60 damage, but as it turns out, I forgot that I had not injured myself, so it actually ended up doing 50. If I was injured, I believe this would have done 60, so I figured that this was all correct. So I went back to 26 just to confirm, and it did 30, so I'm right? Well, guess what? At 25 meters, I tried it once again, and it only ended up doing 30. So I tested at 24, and then it ended up doing 60. Now I'm just confused, so I moved on to 25 again to see what would happen, and it only did 30. So I moved back down to 24, and I did it more than once because it only did 30, which, if you remember, 3 seconds ago, this had just done 60. I'm starting to believe that the further out you are, the more likely you are to deal less damage to hit that smaller multiplier. And the closer that you are, the more likely, so remember this is by chance is what it looks like, the more likely you are to actually hit the higher multiplier dealing the higher damage. I tried to confirm this by going to 23 meters, 22 meters, 21 meters, and at 21 I noticed that I did get a 60, although the 23 and 22 were giving me only a 30. This is starting to confirm my suspicions, considering that at 25 I was getting both randomly 60s and 30s, and same thing at 24, so it really does seem like there is some kind of randomization here. So now I wanted to test multiple shots at multiple ranges to see if we were getting different results. At 7 meters, I believe the multiplier is high enough where you will always get the full 60 to the head. At 19, with a sample size of only 4 shots, you have to keep that in mind that my sample size is tiny, I ended up always getting 60 damage. But considering that at 21 meters, I was getting both 30 and 60, it feels like there is a sharp fall off in the possibility of hitting the higher multiplier starting at around 20 meters. A much bigger sample size will be needed to really figure this out though. Now what about the chest? I wanted to see if it dealt more or less damage at a range where if my hypothesis was correct, the range multiplier would not have any effect. And as it turns out, it seems to deal the same amount of damage as headshots. I moved further back, and at 19 meters I realized that I was dealing exactly 30 damage consistently after around 5 shots. Then I moved closer to 13 meters and it was still 30 damage. Moving on to 9 meters, I actually dealt 60 damage, which made me want to go back to 11 to see what would happen. And as it turns out, at 11 I wasn't dealing 30 or 60 anymore, I started dealing 48 damage. To see what all of that was about, I went back to 10, and the first shot I dealt 48, while the second shot I ended up dealing 60. This is starting to blow my mind here, and as you can tell, there's going to be a lot more research to be done here to really figure out what's going on, because I might have just discovered a third multiplier. Setting those findings aside, I got curious about how much damage the Hive-Tech pistol did at 5 meters to the head and the chest, but this time without any injuries. And it looks like in operations, the base damage for the Hive-Tech pistol, when not affected by any random multipliers or injuries, is 48 damage to the chest and 60 damage to the head. Today, we have learned that suppressors don't work the same as they do in Warfare, and that the sound suppression is the most important reason why we would ever use a suppressor, since you never really show up on the minimap when shooting in operations. We also learned through my Hive-Tech pistol tests that in operations, instead of having a specific range where the damage per shot goes down to a lower number multiplier, there may be a dice roll at specific ranges to see which damage multiplier you actually get. I will have to see if this property also applies to normal weapons, or if it is only applicable to the Hive-Tech pistol itself. This video started with trying to see if the suppressors work the same along with the Hive-Tech pistol, and we ended up with more questions than answers. This is exciting for operations because it shows that there's many mechanics that haven't been found yet, and if we figure them out, then not only can we understand them, but we can also possibly exploit them. I will be doing many more tests like this in the future for both Warfare and operations, so stay tuned. This video took forever to make and it only scratches the surface, so I would love it if you could consider using my supporter creator code AUX when buying Delta coins in game, or if you could use my Midas buy link, which I will have in the description. Now let me know in the comments what you would like for me to test in either Warfare or operations. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, and I will see you on the next one. AuxOwl out.